everybody, it's True Crime Tuesday, and this is Detroit AllyCat, and we have quite a story. It's not really a story, it's more like a catching up. So we're going to talk about Suzanne Morphew, and I am really excited to tell you about all the stuff that I found out, sorta. So, without further ado, let's get spooky. If you guys don't remember, Suzanne Morphew is the woman that went missing on Mother's Day this year, and it was just so weird because there were so many mysterious things that happened, and it didn't really make a lot of sense. And I swear Colorado is always on the news for the weirdest, most strangest cases. And this one is no different, but this I kind of got attached to Suzanne Morphew. So she's 49 years old. She's really attractive. She looks like she belongs on a California beach. She has two beautiful daughters. She's married to a man named Barry Morphew. And from the outside looking in, it looks like her world is just completely perfect. But there are some very bizarre things that I just, I noticed. Number one, the weekend of Mother's Day, Barry decided that he was going to go for fireman training, and nobody knew about this. But then all of a sudden the story changed that he was going to do a work project. And I noticed nobody actually talked about that discrepancy. Whatever reason, he was actually out of town on the day that Suzanne Morphew went missing. That's spooky. And what was also coincidental is my dog. He's really cute. One day I'm going to have him on the show with us. What was also really coincidental is that Suzanne's daughters, who I'm just going to leave their names out of this because I feel like they're going through a lot, they actually went to Idaho on some Christian camp thing, so they weren't home either. And what's very bizarre is that Barry said that he was going to go to the work site, and he left at 5 a.m. or he had to be there at 5 a.m. And that's kind of a weird thing because later on the workers would say that they didn't even start until 11 a.m. What happens is that the girls decide that they're going to go ahead and call their mother on Mother's Day, and they're going to wish her a happy Mother's Day. And she's not home, and they get really worried, and for some reason, I don't understand this part. They call the neighbor to go check to see if Suzanne is home. Now, it could be that the girls called Barry, and Barry called the neighbor to see if she was home, but why wouldn't they have the police just do a wellness check if they were kind of worried or concerned that something wasn't right? Or maybe they just thought she just went on an errand or something. So maybe I'm overreacting, but it just seems kind of weird that the neighbor had to go check to see if Suzanne was home. And then when the neighbor checked, Barry immediately asked the neighbor, "Is her bike there?" I don't know. Maybe she takes bike rides all the time, but it just seemed like a very it was a coincidental thing to say. Is her bike there? And the neighbor said no. So eventually, later on, the police do get called. That's when they started to look for Suzanne Morphew. And I honestly thought that she probably got on her bike and she had an accident and something happened and they were going to find her. As tragic as that is, I just thought that there was a simple explanation as to what was going on. But things did not happen that way. So here we are in 2021, and there's still like no trace of Suzanne Morphew. And there's been so many updates to the case, and I just think it's like a really crazy case. And I want to talk about it because, like, Suzanne Morphew was kind of like the first case that, like, I got really emotionally invested in wondering where they were. It's like an unsolved crime. There's no answer right now. Nobody knows what's happened to her. And there's just like so many like open-ended things. In the beginning, they said that, Barry had a mistress, and he did away with Suzanne for the mistress. Well, the woman who was being accused of being the mistress came out and was like, I am not dating him, I'm an employee, and everyone's harassing me, and that needs to stop. Now, people can lie. People can lie, but there was no evidence of this. Something else is like really interesting is that at the time that Suzanne went missing, that they had two houses. One was in Indiana and one was in Colorado. And the one in Indiana was for sale, and they had just recently moved to Colorado. I believe they had been there for a year. So they were in the process of getting rid of the house in Indiana. And these houses, they are not like normal houses. They are like, I think the one in Colorado is like 1.5 million. The one in Indiana is like, it's at least a $500,000 house, if not more. They're really big, beautiful houses. The only reason that I mention that is because that's a lot of financial stress. And the way that they stated in the beginning was that Barry was like a landscaper, but I don't think he was a landscaper. I think he was like a little bit more involved than being a landscaper. I think he was like a contractor, because they talked about like putting down cement and all this stuff. But regardless, he had a lot of assets, and I don't know what their financial situation was, but they did not look like they were hurting for money. And I've noticed, just noticed that when something happens in a marriage and a woman goes missing and they find out, like, it was the husband's, like, most of the time it's like for financial reasons or they're cheating. Yeah, those are pretty much two of the biggest ones. And I'm not saying that these are reasons why Suzanne Morphew went, missing. I'm just speculating. So let's talk about some of the facts, because a lot of you guys are like, I don't like when you speculate. I'm allowed to speculate, you know that, right? But I do want to talk about some of the facts that happened, because it really intrigued me. Suzanne Morphew went missing, and then 6 months after she went missing, her father died of cancer, which is really sad and really tragic, because you got to think about the fact that her father died not knowing whatever happened to Suzanne Morphew. Now, Suzanne Morphew has a brother. Her brother's name is Andrew Mormon, and I had watched him a couple times on TV. I've seen some interviews with him, and he's like the brother that everybody should have, because this guy, he was like determined to find his sister. And in the beginning, he was very like, he stood by Barry, and he was like, I do not suspect Barry. But recently, that's changed. And the way that I kind of figured that out, besides a lot of the other interviews on Dr. Phil, is that when Susan's father died, he said that he hasn't spoke to Susan's kids, and that before their grandfather died, he had told someone to tell them that they should call their grandfather, which means he's not talking to the kids, which makes me believe that there's like some kind of like estrangement which there's an estrangement, but that's just evidence of the estrangement. So when Suzanne first went missing, it was really weird because, like, Barry put out, like, this video immediately, like, within, like, a week or something, and he was, like, talking to Suzanne, like, wherever you are, I'll find you, and if you have her, we'll pay whatever it is, just bring her home. And it was kind of like he kind of hinted that there was a ransom, and a lot of people broke that down. They're like, oh, look at the body language, look at this, look at that, and in the beginning I was like, you can't really judge that because, like, you don't know what it's like to go through grief. You don't know what it's like to have someone missing. Like, that's, like, everybody deals with those kinds of situations differently. But when I started to investigate and look further into the case, he wasn't really participating in, like, talking to the authorities too much. Like, he didn't want to talk to them. And the other thing is there were, like, these widespread searches. And in the beginning, like, the first week, the police told him, the authorities told him, like, hey, we would prefer you not be doing these searches. And the reason for that is because the first suspect on the list when a woman goes missing is going to be the husband. It always is. They have to rule him out. That's just how it goes. Having him not go looking for her for the first week, that's pretty common. And the other thing is they blocked off their home, and, like, they went and they searched the home. And that really is just to rule out that he didn't do anything, which is also very common. So that really doesn't point to him, like, having any, like, guilt. But after, like, the week was up where he wasn't supposed to search for her, then he could have went searching. And he had, like, all these firefighter buddies. By the way, Barry Morphew, he is, what do they call it? A volunteer firefighter, like somebody who jumps on when they're needed. I don't know. There is a specific name for it. I know you guys all know the name. Please don't make fun of me because I don't know the name on the fly. But, you know, a volunteer firefighter guy. And so he has all these, like, firefighter buddies and stuff. And they said that he never went and looked or participated in any searches, which I don't know if I necessarily believe that, because I've seen videos of people going around looking for Suzanne, and then, like, Barry pops up. So, like, was he searching? Was he walking around? I highly doubt he's taking a hike for pleasure in the area that his wife went missing. But they said that he didn't participate in the mass searches. And they said that they found that really weird because all of his a bunch of his firefighter buddies, they went and they searched, and Barry wasn't there. And then this is something else that I find kind of, like, really interesting, is that when Barry found out that his wife was missing, he told all the workers for the job site that he was supposed to do that day that he was getting them, like, a hotel room. And so he got them all hotel rooms. And when they went into the hotel, like, when they went into Barry's hotel room, which, remember how I said he left at, like, 5 in the morning, and that, like, by the time he got there, he had enough time to be in the hotel room for a while. They said that when they got into Barry's hotel room, that it smelled like chlorine. Okay, so chlorine and bleach are, like, very similar. I don't think they're, like, the same thing, but I know that they're very similar. And they smell the same. I have a pool. I know this. And the hotel, the hotel's pool was not in operation, or they didn't have one. All I know is that there was no reason that room should have smelled like chlorine. And everybody was mentioning that it smelled like chlorine. And the thing about that is that it's kind of widely known that if you want to get rid of, like, DNA evidence or blood or any kind of, like, body fluid, that bleach would be the way to go. So the fact that it smelled like chlorine, did it smell like chlorine or did it smell like bleach? They both smell very, very similar. I hope I'm not confusing you. I'm kind of like all over the place because there's so many different things in this case. So I'm going to try to stay on track. And so that was another thing that was really interesting. Also, one more thing that I didn't know about that now I found out was 2 days after Suzanne Morphew went missing, there was a GoFundMe account put up. Everybody saw it. Usually when there's like a huge tragedy, there's a GoFundMe account put up because, people are going to need help. They're going to need people to do searches. They hire private investigators. They do all kinds of stuff. Like the police can do stuff, but the police and, they have like the whole state to take care of. So their main focus isn't going to be like on one case. They're going to be spread a little bit all over. When they do that GoFundMe account, it's so that like the private citizens can get involved, and a lot of times that really helps. Well, apparently the GoFundMe account that was open 2 days after she went missing, I guess none of the funds were used to help find her. And this is even more weirder. Okay, apparently there was like a bunch of posters made like, where is Suzanne Morphew with her picture and like all the information and like, hey, contact blah 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 if you find her, and they were put up all over the area. But mysteriously, all the posters disappeared. I have never even heard of that happening during like a missing persons case. Like, how do, like, okay, like 1 or 2 posters, yeah, like they fly away or a store owner takes it down, but like all of the posters went missing. Like, I don't know. That just sounds a little shady to me. Around September, Suzanne's like brother, he decides that, he's feeling some kind of way about the situation. He actually did like a Dr. Phil like interview, and he talks about it, and Dr. Phil is like, so what do you think happened? And he's like, I feel like something was going on between my sister and Barry, and not everything was as perfect as it seems. And he asked him, he's like, do you think Barry had something to do with this? And in a roundabout way, he was like, yeah, I do. I think he had something to do with this. So Andrew, like, launched, like, this massive search. Like, he hired cadaver dogs. He hired investigators. He had, like, 1,000 people going and searching. And they were, like, searching job sites that Barry worked at, which is kind of weird because when Suzanne went missing, he was working at a job site and he was laying down cement. And the cadaver dogs that they took out there to go search certain areas, they alerted to 2 areas. And one of the areas was where the cement had been laid, and another area was like in the woods somewhere. Now, just so you know, cadaver dogs, like, not a lot of people know about, like, what cadaver dogs can do. Cadaver dogs are, like, they're, like, one of the coolest things that law enforcement has, or any kind of, like, authorities have. They can actually, and have, alert you to a dead body that's been in the area for over 100 years. They've found, like, Civil War, like, skulls and stuff, which I just think is, like, crazy amazing. I really do. For a cadaver dog to alert, it could be Suzanne, which would be it is very coincidental that it's actually at one of the sites that Barry was working at, or it could be somebody else, because there's been a lot of, like, murders, homicides, missing persons, accidents. There's a lot of dead bodies out there that haven't been found. They're found all the time, like, especially in Alaska. Like, one day I'm going to talk about that. It's crazy. They alerted to that, and I don't know what ever happened with that. That was, like, the last information that I saw. But I was digging into more stuff, and there was like suspicious reasons about this case, and I just want to like tell you about them. All right, so the first thing that was very suspicious about Suzanne Morphew's missing case is that she was missing from, they suspected, a bike ride. When they found the bike was like in perfect condition. Like there was nothing wrong with it. It didn't look like it had been thrown down. It didn't look like it went down a hill. It was just like sitting there. And like somebody mentioned like, well, maybe a mountain lion got her. Now, this is possible, but the chance of a mountain lion killing a woman on a bicycle, like, we're talking, like, the rarest of rare occurrences. Like, seriously. Like, I looked it up and it was, like, 0.01%. Like, there's, like, been 13 in, like, 10 years. And that's, like, a really low number. It's just not, it's not a common occurrence. And as soon as somebody mentioned the mountain lion might have got her, as like, you know, brainstorming, let's figure out why this woman is missing, Barry like jumped on it. He was like, yeah, a mountain lion got her. And then like he called Susan's parents and told them that Susan had been killed in a mountain lion attack. Like, there was no evidence of this. This was just something thrown out in, like, a brainstorming thing. He told, like, neighbors, like, she's been killed in a mountain lion attack. I think that's kind of weird. Like, seriously. First off, like, if you have a loved one who goes missing, and this is speculation, I know how you hate when I speculate, but you're not gonna, like, assume that that person is dead so quickly. You're going to want to keep hope alive. You're going to want to keep faith alive. If the person that I was married to went missing, I would spend every day for the rest of my life looking for them. Like, every day. Like, people would have to be begging me, like, okay, it's time to move on. No, it's not. We're going to keep going. We're going to find him. And if we don't find him, we're going to find his bones, because that's what I want and that's what I'm going to get. So, like, if somebody was like, oh, a mountain lion killed your husband, I would be like, no, that's impossible. And until I see his torn up body or shreds of, like, his clothes somewhere, I'm not accepting that, you know? Actually, and that brings up a really good point. Like, when there are mountain lion attacks and they kill humans, it's usually small children because they're easier to carry off. They're not going to go after something bigger than them. They're going to go after something easy. But I digress. Oh, let's talk about the security cameras at the Morphew home. The Morphew home is so beautiful, by the way. It is like the most beautiful house ever. It looks like this gigantic mansion cabin. But they had security cameras. And for some reason, that weekend on Mother's Day, they weren't working. Like, okay, that can happen. I get it. But here's where it gets crazy. The neighbors also had security cameras, and they weren't working either. Do you find that weird? Like, do you? Because I kind of do. Like, if you were going to do something, I would turn off my security cameras or cut the cord or mess with it. Maybe somebody who knew about equipment like that, like a contractor. And then I would just go on over to my neighbor who I'm friendly with and, like, you know, snip, snip. And then they don't have security cameras. This is just speculation. I know. I'm just saying. And if people that are, like, friends of the Barry Morphew, I don't really mean any disrespect. I don't. I'm brainstorming. And I'm talking about the suspicious circumstances of this case. Here's something else. And I know this is like jumping back and forth, but Barry, when he went on that work job during that weekend, he like had to do during Mother's Day, which I still find very odd that he went on Mother's Day weekend. The bricks for the job, they never arrived. Like, and the reason that that's like so very important is because like if they never arrived, was it being expected that the job would never happen because he kind of knew that something was going to go down? Just something to throw out. Something else that there is a fact about is that there was a personal item found by Suzanne Morphew's bike. It wasn't found like right by it, but like I guess the bike was like on this path, and then there was like this hill, and there's a personal item like that was found, and no one's like the authorities are not releasing what it is, and that's probably because they don't want whoever did it to know that they know what it is, and like I don't know, this kind of like investigative work, but they're keeping it to themselves. And so if they're keeping it to themselves like that, they're suspecting foul play. All right, and the other thing is that recently in November, I believe it was around there was like a candlelight vigil held for Suzanne Morphew, and Barry didn't go, which I don't know, that just seems weird. Now, just so you know, the candlelight vigil was actually held in Indiana, and Barry's in Colorado. On his side, that kind of is like, I mean, if he's trying to find his wife, or he wants to be in Colorado, maybe he didn't want to go there because he didn't want to leave. But here's something really weird. He assumed guardianship over Suzanne Morphew while she was missing, and he sold the Indiana house, which I understand, but he also put his house in Colorado up for sale. I don't know. There's like a couple different ways I feel about that. Like, first off, if Suzanne ever was abducted and somebody had her, she would instantly go home. But now the house isn't for sale. There's stories of people that have been abducted or missing people, and they'll never move from their house because they always want to be able to be tracked down. But Barry listed his house in Colorado. He did get another plot in Colorado, but I don't know. Maybe he can't bear to be in the house because that's where him and Susan lived for 1 year, but it seems kind of weird to me. All right, and now here's a couple more things that need to be talked about. Barry has a GPS. I believe everyone's got a GPS on their phone. You can easily track people with their phones. He probably had one in his car too. I think it's called the All-Star or whatever. But the GPS, when they tracked it, it was not where Barry said he was at the times that he said, which is kind of suspicious, right? Well, then when they asked Barry if they could search his vehicle, he refused. Like, absolutely not. You're not going to search my vehicle. Which they seized his vehicle anyway and searched it, and it hasn't been released if anything was found in it. But then he was actually asked if he would take a polygraph, and he said no. And I don't know, like, polygraphs are very, like, unreliable sometimes, but if you're innocent and you want your wife found, wouldn't you do everything you could just so that they could move on? And then the thing is that the neighbors said that they heard loud machinery the night before Susan Morphew went missing at their house. Loud machinery. And he was the last person to see her alive, and he left at 5 a.m. and he didn't have to be at his job site until 11 a.m. And he got to the hotel, like I said before, early enough to take a shower. Why did he take a shower at the hotel? And then to take a nap. It just sounds like, I don't know, it just sounds really bad. Like, loud machinery, he got to the hotel, he took like a shower. Why did you take a shower? Then your room smelled like chlorine bleach, and then you took a nap. And it's really, really weird because then he didn't call the police when she went missing. The neighbor called the police. Like, why didn't he call the police? These are just questions I'm asking. The similarities in the Lacey Peterson story and this story are kind of freaky. Just saying. Just saying. This is something else that has come out, is that, you know, Suzanne Morphew had like a very like large presence on social media. I wouldn't say large. She just had like a Facebook, and she was talking to friends about some things on Facebook and in the messages, and they are saying, her brother is saying, that she confided to one of her friends that her relationship with Barry wasn't as perfect as as everybody thought it was. And they think that the person that she confided into doesn't want to come and talk to the authorities about it because she's afraid that she will get someone in trouble. Which, I mean, I kind of understand, but at the same time, like, I feel like that there's a chance that this woman might have been murdered, and she really needs to be put to rest, like, seriously. And then, like, one more thing that I totally forgot to mention. I bet you there's, like, a couple more things. Susan's phone was at her house. So if she was gonna go on a bike ride that day, why didn't she take her phone? Like, everywhere I go, I take my phone, because if something bad happens, I want to be able to have my phone. Not only will the police be able to track where you went and what happened, but you can call for help. And she left her phone there. And Susan wasn't like a stupid person. Like, she had some common sense. Like, I believe she was a teacher, and like the people around town said she was very smart, she was very sweet. It doesn't make sense that she would leave her phone at home on a bike ride in Colorado. And then Barry told everybody that he took Susan on a date the night before. Now, how is that possible? He said he took her out to eat on a date. Restaurants weren't open because of COVID, and there's not one person that can corroborate that story. Like, nobody can say, like, yeah, I saw him. He went here, and he went there, and he went there. I mean, maybe he took her, like, on a date driving around the neighborhood or something, but his story was, like, I took her on a date, and we went out to eat. And unfortunately, he's now liquefying all the assets and, like, doing things that look very suspicious. It was important to me to talk about this because I feel like these are some, like, really big points. A lot of these I've actually heard from her brother, which I just don't think that, like, he would be making stuff like this up. Like, I don't. It would be very counterproductive to finding his sister. And I feel bad because if Barry is innocent and I'm making this video, it's just very wrong with me. But at the same time, everybody needs to, like, know the facts and understand that, like, she's still missing and she has 2 kids and they need to know where their mother is. And I think about her every day. I think that's so weird. Like, I've never been attached to a missing person as much as I've been attached to Suzanne Morphew. And I will continue to give updates until they find her. Yeah, that's what I got for you. I wish I had, like, the information of where she's been found and all that stuff. If you are in the Colorado area and you know something, or you're maybe one of the people that talked to her on her Facebook or social media, please call the authorities. I'm going to put up a little flyer with a little phone number, and, you know, don't be afraid, because she needs to be found. She needs to be laid to rest. She needs to be, like, something needs to be found. And maybe she's still alive. Maybe she decided she wanted another life and she's sitting on a beach somewhere. which I don't think, because she loved her daughters, and it doesn't seem like that was what she would do. But yeah, if you enjoyed the content, if you thought that it was interesting, if you thought it was informative, think about subscribing, think about leaving a comment, give me a thumbs up. I know it was like sporadic all over the place, but this case is like sporadic all over the place. Like there are so many weird different things, and I'm probably missing some of the stuff, but I got a lot of the big stuff. Yeah, tell me what you think. And as always, thank you for coming to my channel, and stay safe and stay spooky. Bye.